Well, I'm very honored to be sitting down with one of my friends. Now I can say my friend, Carole Feuerman. I see you as such a busy person, and I see your pieces everywhere I go, whether I'm at Mass MoCA or I'm in New York City. I went to the opening of the Conrad downtown in New York and saw one of your pieces in the lobby. Talk to me about this hustle. I mean, you were always busy and doing things.
I love to work. I'm never going to retire. I love to create, and I've been writing a lot. I was never a writer, but now I'm a writer. I did a new book. I've been doing podcasts, and we're doing one today. And do I hustle? I guess. I don't look at it like a hustle. I look at it more like I enjoy what I do, and it's my journey.
And where do you find the creativity? Because I'll talk to writers and I'll say, especially with everything that's been going on, where are you finding your creativity? It's so difficult, I think sometimes, especially now with this pandemic, for people to find it. I mean, I have a friend who hasn't written in 6 months.
Well, the first thing I wrote about is what it feels like during the pandemic for me as an artist. And I wrote about that because it affected me and how I felt emotionally, and that I felt, I was losing my mind, and you feel depressed and there's nothing to do. And then I started interviewing people. How do you feel? Then I thought maybe I'll do an online art exhibit, and people should submit their feelings and whatever they drew, whatever they made creatively. And, one thing leads to another. So I can't stop being creative. That's something that makes me feel well. So if I stopped being creative, I would get sick. So it's easy for me.
Yeah. And that process for you has to be more physical or has to be more mental, or what is that like?
That's a good question, the process. For me, it starts as something mental, like in my mind. If I don't have an idea of what I want to say and use my art as a way to say it, then it's not going to say anything. It's just like it might as well be a mannequin. So I have to have a concept, and each piece has to have a communication to it.
Is there in your mind, when you look at a piece like The Divers or some of these hyperrealist pieces, is it sort of like how a musician looks at eras in their career, or how is it? Is it different for you with each piece?
Well, I don't know what you mean by eras. Do I make mistakes?
Like Madonna, right? We know Madonna's got the Like a Virgin era, and then we have the Blonde Ambition, and then we have erotica and whatever.
Then it's the same, because I went through erotica first, then the Blonde Ambition. So you go through with me, and I think it's with other real creative people who don't copy other people. They draw from within whatever's interesting to them, whatever they're into at that point. If it's depression, if it's happiness, if whatever. If they want to know about a relationship, so I did relationship sculptures. And I think with singers and actors, they probably do that too. A singer would sing about something like if they're in love, like a love song, if they want to be in love, if they're, I think it comes from within true creativity.
Yeah. And so now with One More Studio, because that's where we're at here in Brooklyn, you're doing something different, and you're allowing creators to come in and sort of go through this process here.
Yeah.
Why was that important for you?
It's a matter of, like you said, creativity. And it was a COVID thing. And because of COVID, I've written a book. I've thought of other ways of being creative. I could build a creative studio, because when you're doing that, you're just working with one person, or you draw what you want to do, you have a concept. And I think prior to COVID, I was busy making pieces like every single day. I had to do this, do this, do this, and I never stopped to kind of let other creativity, other ways of being creative come in. So in a way, it worked out good for me because it slowed life down, my life anyway.
And whether they're doing a podcast here, like I know you do, or they're singing an album, or they're shooting photography, anybody can really come here.
Anybody. I even asked my lawyer if she wanted to come here and talk about, the art law. There's a whole field of law that has to do with creativity, singers, artists. We all need art law. So the more I think about it, the more people that can really come to promote whatever they're doing. But I started using the room personally because we didn't rent it right away. People were sheltering in place and they didn't go out. And here I built this beautiful studio, and I said I might as well do my own podcast.
Yeah, well, I love the idea of this podcast because I was talking to some of the people that work here, and I said it's kind of like one of these masterclass sessions.
Exactly.
And you can sort of get a glimpse of your process and how you deal with it. For people who are going to go listen to the podcast, what are some of the most important things they're going to glean from that?
That's another good question, Gary. You're wonderful at asking me questions and speaking. What are they going to glean? Well, it's a way of communicating. So it depends on the questions that come up and the interviewer, how good they are, and the person who's answering the questions, how honest they are and truthful. Because there's a lot that happens when you communicate with another person, and what do you glean from it? It depends. I think for each person it's different.
Yeah. I mean, for you, I always sort of like to ask myself, what do I need to hear right now? And maybe as an artist, are there points that you're reliving or experiencing with the podcast, or maybe even your book, that you're sort of saying, I needed to hear this again right now?
Well, definitely, I needed to hear this. I needed to hear that I had 300 viewers on TikTok.
300,000.
300,000 on
Let's
TikTok.
not be modest.
I didn't even know how to do TikTok, and if it weren't for One More Studios and the genius of Rich Nuzzalese, who took a picture of me, and Marcella, who helped me with that, I wouldn't be on TikTok. So a lot happens. A lot of very exciting things happen from having a creative studio. It's just another dimension to creativity.
Yeah. Let's talk about the book now, because I know that there is always catharsis in writing, and sometimes it's painful process, and I don't know how people because I'll hear somebody say, I just watched this Joan Didion documentary, and she said, I'll sit down at the keyboard and just write. And I don't know how, I don't think everybody has that gene.
I didn't even know I had it. I wanted to, I've led a very interesting life, and I don't know who's going to read my autobiography. My first reaction was, maybe I should do fiction, because, I'm not, my name is not iconic. And I do have a lot of followers, but...
Depends who you ask. I mean, to me, when I see the name, I said, oh my gosh, it's Carole.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I guess we don't see ourselves the way other people see us. And I'm very excited that you see me that way. Yeah. But is it cathartic? Yeah. Does it help? Well, I wanted to write this autobiography, like I said, because I'm a hyperrealist. So the name of the autobiography is My Hyperrealist Life and Legacy.
Perfect.
And, that alone, people say, what is a hyperrealist? But I have...
Which is maybe a good question. What is a hyperrealist?
Okay, I did a podcast on that too. Hyperrealism is when you make something that's so real that hyperrealism has to do with sculpture, and it's like making a sculpture of a person that's so real you think the person's in the room with you, with eyelashes and freckles or whatever the person has.
Water drops. Yeah. Or...
It started with photorealism, which is a painterly technique that makes your painting look just like a photograph. Mm-hmm. So photorealism, there were a bunch of photorealist painters, Richard Esty and others, Chuck Close, who do the most amazing photorealist paintings. And then hyperrealism is a 3-dimension, to take it to another level, so that from all the way around, it's very real. So I'm a hyperrealist. I used to say that my sense of humor was surgically removed because I'm so realistic. But
I guess you keep it real all the time.
I do.
Guess that's sort of...
It's from my life. But I think, and I named a sculpture perception, I think it has to do with perception, because I can do something that, and I do this now, that isn't as real, is not really as hyperreal. I don't do every freckle, or the person will look like they have marks all over their face. And realistically, the right and the left side of your face are different. And some people, their ears stick out, and some people are beautiful, but they're not perfect. But so I kind of change things a lot when I do a sculpture. I used to do a life cast of someone's face, and now I don't. I more or less do a 3D scan with a camera, and then I work with a computer, and I change it a lot. And so it's not hyperreal. But perception, you would see the sculpture and think, oh my God, that's real.
Yeah.
So perception, and that I find that very interesting, because when I do my sculpture and it's hyperreal, and I can watch a viewer and how they react to it, then I become the voyeur. And it's the whole thing is just fascinating to me.
Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, I had that experience looking at it saying, oh my God, that looks so real the first time I saw some of your art. To jump back to the book.
Oh, sure.
Life lessons here in this book. You sort of mentioned to me that it was kind of like a empowerment book, or I don't know how you would sort of describe it, but there are so many lessons there. What are the biggest ones for you? What are the most important ones for you if there's an artist that reads this book and then is...
Anybody who reads it.
Yeah.
We all face trials and tribulations. Nobody gets scot-free, although some people have it easier than others, I will admit. But the best way to learn is through lessons, rather than someone telling you, oh, do this, like in school. But I would say to people that trial and error is important, but you should persevere. And don't listen to people who put you down or make you feel bad. You have to believe in yourself. And then you have to realize that everything is the way it should be, even when you can't understand it at all. So if you're faced with horrible things like death, which is the most horrible thing, or something really hard, sickness, or some really serious thing, which would be a legitimate reason to cry, you, even though you don't understand it, there is a reason. And eventually, if you stick with it, you'll see that it's right. Things don't always make sense, but that's the way life is. So you should just try to find something. Find who you are, number one. Figure out what you want to do. And if you try it and it's not right, then do something else. You don't have to stay with one thing. You don't have to feel you have to do this. Yeah. So my advice is learn who you are, figure out what you have passion for, and then stick with it. Don't listen to other people, and enjoy what you're doing regardless of where it takes you.
And where are you going next?
Well, now I'm an author, which is kind of interesting because I just changed my biography and I added hyperrealist, sculptor, mother, grandmother, and author, which is I'm pretty excited about. I didn't put that I did One More Studios entrepreneur, but,
That's next.
So where am I going with this? I want to see what happens with One More Studios. We're a baby. We've only just started it. It's doing amazing. We have fabulous people coming. Richie's doing a remarkable job, and it feels very comfortable here. Each room feels good, and people are loving it. So I want to see where that goes. I might do another one. Richie wants to do one in Miami, but I told him, let's slow down. Let's get this baby off the ground.
Yeah.
And when she's a little older, We'll think of another location. And I'm already thinking of my second book because I'm thinking of all the things I left out of my first book. But I'm basically thinking of my next sculpture, too, because my priority is to make art. So I'm thinking about that. And I have a lot of shows coming up. I'm having a museum show in Rome, and they're going to put my work in Villa Borghese and all over Rome. So I'm hoping that Italy opens up. Mm-hmm. And I'm having a show in Milan. And I have a show at the Medici Museum in Ohio. And I have a show coming up in Canada. And my publisher, who did the Swimmers book, the one before this, wants to do Swimmers Part 2. So there's a lot on the horizon.
Lots of fabulous projects coming our way. Carole Feuerman, thank you so much for joining me.
And thank you so much, Gary. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to our next talk.